Stern is a molecular biologist. He's reached the top levels in ASEA as a triple diamond, and he's an IM ASEA recipient, which is a great honor and prestige. And what else? From Scottsdale, Arizona. Anything I missed?
That works.
That what? Oh, the advisory board. Yes, he sits on the ASEA advisory board.
That's great.
So he's very knowledgeable. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, Naomi. Well, welcome. You guys braved this weather coming out here. So, how many of you have never seen a formal presentation on the seat? Anybody here? Everybody's kind of an expert. Okay, so this is new for you. Then good. I'm gonna go into a little bit of information that I think will hopefully give you a sense of why this is really so incredibly special. Okay, so typically when I talk to people and I travel around quite a bit in North America, over in Europe, sharing this knowledge of this incredible technology with people, and people come to presentations for various different reasons, hearing about what this product can do for them, looking at ways to make a difference in their financial situation. So I'm typically interested in why people are coming, to get a sense of what's going on. People come for, as I say, a lot of reasons. Today, in the last probably 4 or 5 years, particularly in the States, and I'm sure Canada hasn't been completely missing this, but the economic situations out there have been pretty dire, pretty tough for a lot of people. People are interested in alternatives. They're looking for ways and means to shore things up for their home, for their families, maybe even alternative opportunities to replace what they're currently doing in their original livelihoods. Other people are looking just to add some extra financial ways into their life to maybe have a little bit more lifestyle activities so they can enjoy it with their families. Perhaps they've got children that are getting ready to go off to university, and just to be able to handle that extra added costs involved, or they're just looking to enjoy life and have a sense of freedom and enjoyment. And all these things take the ability to have the funds to do it, to be able to enjoy it. Or a lot of people are coming because they want to have the opportunity to avail themselves of the power that this product has to really make an amazing difference for their health and well-being. So we're in a time right now where, here it is 2014, there's literally billions upon billions of dollars that have been spent in trying to develop the very, very best in health and wellness and medicine. And it's kind of an interesting thing, because if somebody was in a car accident, or if they're a soldier on the battlefield and they get wounded, they've got the greatest opportunity in history to be able to survive and do well as a result of that. So from a traumatic health and wellness point of view, we're really second to none in the world. Western science, Western medicine has really done extraordinary things to be able to deal with these kinds of things. And yet when we look at statistics of what's going on when it comes to chronic conditions, it's really quite dire, and it's very disconcerting, because the situations are not looking so good. Yeah, we've dealt with a lot of the diseases that as we were growing up, were really prone to dealing with large population challenges, but chronic conditions have just been growing dramatically over the last 20, 30 years. In fact, chronic conditions are growing 6 times faster than the population. So the question you really want to ask is, what is up with that? Why is this situation occurring? Now, there's a lot of different reasons for it. There's people that'll point to just, the quality of the mass food processing system that's out there, the pollution that's in the environment. There's a lot of things going on. I want to kind of give you a sense of it, but it's a really good question to ask, because we're dumping a ton of money into research, and we haven't seemed to be able to really put our finger on the pulse of what's really going on there. Dr. Papa is a guy that I got introduced to about really in the last year or so. He's an extraordinary guy. He's got a big following out in the health and wellness community. He's a chiropractor, but he's a very well-spoken, very like I said, influential person. The reason I'm showing him is he had a very amazing situation happen to him. He was very successful, very healthy, out there running marathons, the top of his game, both in terms of his health, his business, his athletic performance, and even with all the knowledge that he has in alternative health and wellness. All of a sudden, one day he found himself where his health completely just fell off the cliff, and he ended up spending 5 years or so in the process of trying to figure out how to help himself. He was bedridden for a long time, lost just about everything in that process, and it was a slow road to recovery, but the way he really was able to recover was really focusing on the cell. And realizing that if we can't really help ourselves, then we're not really getting to the cause and core of what's going on. So we really need to get to the point where we're recognizing that these tiny little cells that make up everything in our body, and we have trillions of them, some 75 to 100 trillion, depending upon who you're talking to, is really the key thing. So more than wanting to have a healthy heart, we're really looking at healthy heart cells and healthy liver cells and healthy brain cells, recognizing that at the cellular level things are really at the crux of what's going on. So when our cells are healthy, basically everything else follows suit. Now, when I was starting to put some of this information together research-wise, I remember back in 2004, Time magazine had this as their cover where they're talking about inflammation being the real core behind a lot of serious health challenges. They're talking about heart attacks and cancers and Alzheimer's, and we're talking about things that are related to chronic health challenges, and that there's this underlying commonality of inflammation being a contributing factor towards doing all that. And so Dr. Papa and people around him talk about this being an actual epidemic of cellular inflammation. Inflammation that's occurring at the cellular level that is not being resolved, and it's leading to a lot of these chronic conditions. And so this inflammation really is at the core of all these sicknesses, and the sickness that an individual actually develops is going to be dependent upon which genetic susceptibilities they may particularly have. So you could have a whole room full of people that are exposed to the same kind of external conditions that may lead to an underlying sort of inflammatory response. And again, it could be from the foods, it could be from the environment, it could be from a large number of different things, but the way that they present as far as the challenges they have is going to be unique to the particular susceptibilities, the weak genes that they have that can be activated and generate problems. And these weaknesses get activated, and the number one thing that turns on these genes of susceptibility are the stressors that are in our environment, the toxic stressors and the things that we're exposed to, and the way that we deal with these different kinds of stressors. So, you know, I don't want to suggest that this product ASEA that we're going to be talking about is the one and only thing to be doing, you know, to solve all these issues, but I'm going to be suggesting that it plays a huge pivotal foundational role that allows us to tie together all the other things that any number of very well-educated, very well-intended people that have been bringing various health modalities and helping people understand how to improve their lifestyle situation to be able to handle things. And this product ASEA that we'll be talking about has an extraordinary ability to tie it all together. So more than just the toxic stressors in an environment that we're in, the interesting thing is that our bodies actually can't discern the difference between chemical stressors, say from pollutants in our environment, physical stress that we're maybe exposed to based on any number of different things, and the emotional stress that we're experiencing. I mean, we are inundated with constantly being on edge in our modern, 24/7 lifestyle that we're in. Now, maybe you remember, some of you might have, I remember reading this book back in the 80s, a book by Alvin Toffler called Future Shock. Any of you remember that book? A couple of you? Toffler was given a lot of grief when he first wrote this. People were laughing at him because he was saying that by the end of the millennium, by the year 2000, that the pace of change was going to be happening so rapidly that it was going to be creating an enormous amount of stress in people's lives that was going to be impacting them and impacting society. And now here we are 44 years later looking back on it, and he was right on the money, because the pace of change, the pace of just keeping up with what's going on has really gotten to the point where we just assume that's just the way it is. It's almost like, we don't remember. If you've got a particular profession, just keeping up for the information in your one area of expertise is almost impossible to do, much less keep up with what's going on with everything else all around you, where the information is constantly turning over. I forget what the numbers are right now in terms of the doubling of information, where it's gone from doubling over every 1,000 years to now it's like every 5 years or so. The world amount of knowledge and information is doubling. And that has a huge impact on just trying to keep grounded and centered with what's going on. But all of these things go back to how it impacts us at the cellular level. How many are familiar with Bruce Lipton? Any of you read Bruce Lipton? Biology Beliefs, a fantastic book. I love this book. I love listening to Bruce and what he has to say, because his perspective as a cell biologist was really kind of the discovery that the cells, the actual communication, the sensory organs of the cell, the brain of the cell, if you will, isn't the nucleus where the information in the DNA is, but it's actually the membrane. It's actually the interface of information, the ability to communicate. And the reason I am sharing this information is that the ability for our bodies at the cellular level and collectively as human beings depends on the ability to interact with the environment and perceive and get information with the environment. And the main reason that's important has to do with something that's called epigenetics. Now, I was taught genetics, as part of molecular biology, where gene theory was essentially, we're born, we've got the genes that we got from our parents, and it's like that was sort of the hand of cards that we were dealt in this game called life. And whatever those cards were that we had, that's just the way it was. And today, with the technology that's out there, where they can take a sample of DNA from our hair or our blood and be able to analyze our entire genetic makeup literally overnight with the equipment that's out there, people are being, sensitized that, okay, you've got this particular gene, okay, and we're hearing, of course, in the media, people making really radical decisions based on the realization that they may have a gene that's associated with a particular health challenge. And the thing that's amazing about epigenetics is the understanding that's becoming aware of is that your genes are not your limiting factors, that you do not have to be a victim of the genes that you've got. Why your DNA is not your destiny. So the concept of epigenetics is that the environment that we're exposed to, the things that we do, and at the cellular level, that environment is dictated by the way we deal with life, the way we deal with stress, the way we perceive what's going on around us, and the kinds of materials that we're exposed to, the radiation, the foods, the drugs, the nutrients, all these things impact our genes and literally have the ability to turn on and off various genes that could be better for us or worse for us. The point is that we actually have the ability to impact it on a major level, much more so than anybody ever thought. So we're looking at the ability to take responsibility for what's going on in our lives and not to put it into the hands of somebody that's just analyzing and say, okay, well, you've got, this particular genetic disposition and we want to deal with something this way. It gives choices that really it's reinforcing, as Naomi was saying, the decision that she made, that she wanted to learn how to take responsibility for dealing with their own health and wellness, and that this whole concept is very reinforcing for that. So I want to be talking about a solution that's extremely powerful, and I believe plays very strongly into this whole concept of epigenetics, and it has to do with something called redox, okay? And I'm going to talk a little bit about the redox in the cells and how that interplays with the ability for the cells to be able to heal themselves, to deal with inflammation, and most importantly, to deal with communications that allows that process to work. So a lot of us are not familiar with this term redox. It's a word that really comes out of the world of electrochemistry. So we don't hear much about it in the health and wellness and in medicine and biology. But it's basically a contraction of two words. The first three letters of the word reduction, the first two letters of the word oxidation to give you this word. So in electrochemistry, reduction is a term that has to do with a group of atoms or molecules that have extra electrons, and oxidants are ones that don't have enough. So for instance, you take a piece of iron, you put it out in the weather, and it rusts, it oxidizes. Well, the concept of oxidation doesn't necessarily have to do with oxygen, the element oxygen. It has to do with the loss of electrons. So if we were to find some miraculous way to build a bridge between here and the mainland, okay, and then let's say that bridge was made of steel and it's got pylons that go down into the water, we would be concerned over time to prevent that bridge from oxidizing and rusting and having to require a huge amount of maintenance. Well, when engineers build bridges, steel bridges out there, what they actually do to alleviate that challenge is they put an electrical current onto the bridge to provide electrons to that metal to essentially prevent the loss of those electrons, okay, so that the metal doesn't oxidize. Well, in our body, a very similar kind of thing happens. As we get exposed to a lot of things, as we age and deal with the vicissitudes of life, biologically, internally, we tend to rust. But we can't put an electrical current, we can't stick our finger into the electrical socket because that electricity is not formatted in the right form that our body is able to assimilate. So we rely on biological molecules to essentially carry electrons around to essentially do a similar process. So I want to talk about this because this concept of redox is enormously important to life, enormously important to life. When I first started researching around redox, it was before I got exposed to ASEA. I was actually working with technology that dealt on a redox level, and I was working with alternative healthcare practitioners in several countries around the world, and we were having amazing results, but as a scientist it drove me crazy not being able to understand precisely what was going on, how to really explain to other scientists about it. So I was endeavoring on a research level to really understand this. And when I got exposed to ASEA, it was a huge aha for me, because I had already been primed to understand the importance of redox. So just to give an example, how many of you are aware of a lot of people talking about the importance of acid and base in the body, the importance of being alkaline and not being acidic? I mean, it's almost commonplace now. Everybody's talking about that. But I want to venture to say that that is nowhere as important as the redox balance in your body, okay? That the body's got amazing buffering capacity to maintain the pH of the blood, for instance. The pH of the blood never changes probably more than 1/10 of a pH unit or even less than that, because the body's really well equipped in doing that. But the redox potential, the ability for this electron balance to be there, plays a major, major role on the process of life. And you know, I was talking earlier with Naomi about just the overall concept about how important redox is. Now, you don't have to do a deep dive into this from a scientific point of view, but all of life essentially exists as a result of the process of redox. I mean, think about the sun putting out the light. The plants have the ability to capture the electrons from the light in the process of photosynthesis. It takes those electrons, it then captures it into carbohydrates that then we consume, animals consume, we consume, and then we extract those electrons back out of that originated from the light, and that's what we use to generate the energy. And then everything that's going on biochemically around us is essentially more or less related to this ability to extract electrons and this flow of electrons through our body, through biological molecules. So life itself, the ability for that to happen, is all built around this process of redox. Okay, and yet most people don't really have a sense of it. But it is the very fundamental process of which everything else is built up on. Now, this is a guy named Dr. Naidu, who's a brilliant researcher. He's been nominated for the Nobel Prize 2 different times. He's a brilliant, worldwide respected researcher. Now, in this book that he put together called Redox Life, where he's really educating people about how important redox is, not just in physical, not just in biological life, but redox is a phenomena that actually allows the sun to even create the light. It really is involved in every process around when it comes to dealing at the atomic level. But he's saying that redox potential literally controls the fate of every cell. Every organism that is made up of cells, the ability for the cell to survive, for its aging, its death, its ability to differentiate, which is a term used in biology that describes a cell being able to transform from one type of cell to another type of cell. So for instance, when a stem cell, when you have a stem cell going into your heart, the beauty of that stem cell is it can differentiate or turn into a heart cell. And as a new heart cell that isn't maybe a damaged heart cell like some of the other heart cells are there, it can start proliferating and generate healthy heart cells to maybe overcome damaged heart cells. And so that's why stem cells are so looked upon as being important. But the ability for that stem cell to become a heart cell actually is controlled by the redox environment. So stem cells without the proper redox are not able to do the magic that so many people look upon them to be able to do. Okay? So I want to just kind of finish this one piece talking about this redox potential, because you know, from in the form of the word potential has to do with electrical use of the word potential, not potential like, you know, this person's got great potential to be a great actor, for instance, or something like that. Redox potential has to do with sort of the amount of electricity there is, or the electrical pressure that's there. And so the redox potential, this is a cell, and inside the cell, ideally, you want it to be between minus 120 to minus 190 millivolts. Outside of the cell, minus 80 millivolts. So there's a current difference of minus 40 or more millivolts between these two areas, and that allows really important things to happen, because this redox potential actually impacts the receptors that are on the cell. It actually allows those receptors to function. Receptors are made up of proteins, and the proteins have a three-dimensional configuration to it. We talk about it as like a lock and key mechanism. So let's use an example. Let's take insulin. Insulin is a hormone. Insulin will come and it will bind to a receptor on the cell. The insulin is triggered by a result of the brain determining that there's a certain concentration of sugar in the blood. It releases insulin. Insulin binds to the receptor on the cell, and as a result of that binding, it opens up the channels to allow the sugar into the cell, so the cell can then metabolize that sugar, okay, to keep that balance. But if the redox potential is not ideal, that receptor that's three-dimensional gets distorted, three-dimensionally distorted, so that insulin isn't able to bind effectively to that receptor, and therefore it's creating a dysfunction in the ability to allow that sugar metabolism to occur. Now that's just an example, but there are hundreds of different kinds of things that are binding to the cell's receptors that allows this process taking place. And you don't need to know all that. All you need to know is that if we can restore this redox environment, then everything works the way it's supposed to, okay? So we're now dealing at a level of importance that we've never ever been able to touch before, ever in history. Now, I'll share a little bit about how you can do some of these things to impact the redox balance, but let's look at what the significance of all this is. Well, first, the redox potential impacts this communication with the environment, okay? So the cellular environment directly affects the cellular health, and the genetic susceptibilities, the genetics that we have, at the end of the day, only contribute some 10% to whether or not a gene is actually expressed or not. So we have the ability to impact 90% whether something is going to happen or not happen, or we can turn off a negative gene. In a lot of cases, we have 90% of the control dealing with the cellular level. This membrane and its receptors literally is the interface to epigenetics. Okay, I just wanted to put that out. I generally don't cover a lot of this kind of information when I talk about ASEA, but I think it's really important for us as kind of a core group of people to understand exactly how profound what we're touching on really is. We've got a solution here that the world desperately needs. Desperately needs. Nobody understands. This is breakthrough technology that people don't know about. And here we are, you know, probably now a group of people more educated about this possibility than if we were to just do a poll of 100 medical doctors. Probably only one of them is even familiar with the concept of how important redox is. And they probably don't understand how it impacts epigenetics. So we're really kind of now the forefront. We're the people that are going to go out there and lead the way to having people have this information. Now the good news is, you don't need to know all this, okay? You just need to have a sense, a gut feeling that there's something really deep and important about this, and then you can guide people to information. They can get this kind of stuff through informational websites and stuff. We do not individually need to be able to articulate this information, okay? So relax on that, okay? But I wanted to give you a feel for it. So this impacts the ability of all these different genetic susceptibilities. So I want to kind of put this in perspective because truly I think we're touching on something that is revolutionary. And I want to use the term transformational technology to explain how revolutionary this is. Because one of the challenges that we have as a group of people, a body of people involved in sharing information and working in the healthcare community, is that we're dealing with people that are completely inundated with information from the internet, from the 24/7 news channels, and the value of information is becoming just over, you know, we're so inundated with it that we're not able to process it, and you get a lot of people out there that are just throwing out terms and concepts that frankly we don't believe anymore. If I'm on the internet and there's an ad that says amazing breakthrough, right? Do I think there's really an amazing breakthrough? I'm like, yeah, right, okay. You know, what's this? Now somebody's hyping this. Generally, you know, there's minor variations or improvements on something that already exists, and people make it a big breakthrough, a big discovery. It's not. It's just a minor variation on a theme or a new way to shuffle the deck and look at something a little differently, but not necessarily a breakthrough. But a transformational technology, when it does actually come along, it changes the game. It changes the playing field. It shifts the paradigm of which the world begins looking at things that point forward. Now, transformational technologies don't just shift everything overnight, but let's talk about it. I'll use an example. After World War II, in the US, in New Jersey, there's a company called Bell Laboratories, and they developed the transistor. The transistor, of course, led to the ability to create computers and everything else among them. But the transistor was a major shift in electronics. Now, Bell Laboratories put a symposium together, and they invited people that wanted to bid for the licensing rights to take this new technology and commercialize it and put it out there into various different applications. Now, over in Japan, there was an individual by the name of Masura Buka who had heard about this, and he thought that his small little company over in a small town in Japan, that he'd have very little chance of being able to bid for the winning bid to take this technology back to Japan. But the crazy thing is not only was he the only person that showed up from Japan, he was the only person that showed up. He's the only one that said, hey, I want to take advantage of this opportunity to bid on the licensing rights for this transistor. He then went back to Japan and started the Sony Corporation. Okay, there was a different company name initially, but it eventually became the Sony Corporation. It was the same corporate entity, and he changed the world of electronics forever. And he certainly changed the balance of business technology and electronics between North America and Japan. Do you remember that right after World War II, Japan was not synonymous with high tech? You know, I mean, what was Japanese products synonymous with?
Cheap.
Cheap. That's right. That was, if it was from Japan, it was cheap, it was junk, whatever. And now, all of a sudden, you know, Japan became the source of amazing quality, but in electronics, it dominated it. The electronics industry, televisions, all those kinds of things shifted over there as a result of it. It changed the world of electronics forever, and the transistor changed the world of electronics forever and led the way for the whole semiconductor revolution that happened as a result of it. Now, General Electric is a huge company in the US that dominated the electronics world. They were also hot on the trail for the development of semiconductors to develop the transistor, but they actually consciously abandoned the project because they were afraid it was going to interfere with their huge vacuum tube business. Okay? I mean, how's it possible for such a huge company to miss seeing where this technology was going to transform the world? Well, they do miss it. Similar to when the automobile came out, you would have thought that the people that controlled the transportation industry at the time would have been the natural people to bring the automobile out, but they missed it too. The people in the horse and buggy trade, the livery stable, so things of that nature. No, they laughed at the automobile. They thought it was just a fad that was going to come and go. Nobody would bother actually doing something along those lines. So it really takes a special vision to be able to see a transformational technology when it comes. Okay? And so I truly believe that what we're talking about is in that category of transformational technology. Now, 5 years ago, it's been really 5 years and about a month almost, I had a chance to meet somebody that really struck me as being an extraordinary individual that had this amazing visionary aspects about him, and his name is Vertus Norton. He's the head of strategy for Kraft General Food, considered one of the world's leading business strategists, a brilliant individual. I had a chance to meet with him, and he's the one that shared with me the concept behind this technology that led to this product that we call ASEA. He's the founder that started this company along with his business partner James Pack and his son Tyler that really put this together, but he's the guy. And the way that came about essentially is he was asked after he retired from Kraft to do some strategic planning for a small biotech publicly traded company that was really floundering, trying to figure out how to go about moving it to the next level. They had developed a technology that they felt was extremely promising, and they invited Vertus to come in and do some strategic planning to their executive committee to try and give them some direction. They had developed a technology that was showing enormous promise in a large number of different areas of health, but when you're in the pharmaceutical world, you don't create a drug that is a panacea. It doesn't work that way. It's quite the opposite. In the pharmaceutical world, you want to home in on one particular aspect of one particular disease and then create a pharmaceutical approach for that. Okay, so it's not like you have one drug that's good for this health challenge, and by the way, it's also good for that, and it's also good for this. And so this company had developed this technology, and they were seeing, you know, across the board benefits in a large number of things, and as a result of that, they were floundering because they didn't know how to focus or where to focus in. And that's what they brought Virtus in to help them strategically figure out where to go. They were really impressed with Virtus and asked him to join their board. And Virtus was one thing to do some consulting for a company. It's a whole other thing to be on their board of directors. And Virtus had just finished a 4-year stint overseeing a biotech company. In fact, Dr. Naidu was the head researcher on that, and him and Virtus developed a very strong rapport. And Virtus had a pretty good sense of being able to understand different things. So he agreed, after talking to various researchers on this technology, to join the board. And when he went to the first board meeting, he realized that this company was mismanaged. They had spent $30 million, but they only had $29 million, so they were about $1 million in debt. They had gone through their first phase of their FDA clinical trials, and you know, but they were not in very good shape. But more importantly than overspending, because that's really not a problem in a public company. You can raise more money, sell more stock. The way they had actually handled their voting stock within the stockholders made it impossible for them to bring in more investment on top of it. So he knew after a short period of time that that company had serious financial challenges. But what happened was he was exposed to the technology that evolved into this product we call ASEA, and he was able to personally use it, and he was seeing amazingly incredible impact that it was doing on his own health. And so he made the decision that he had to find some way, shape, or form to be able to have access to this technology even after the company that originally created it would go by the wayside, because he knew, since it was a publicly traded company, they had enormous tax losses that made it attractive for other public companies to gobble them up, or for some company to acquire the public company as a shell with its tax losses and use that as a way to start another company. And that's exactly what happened. It was an energy company that acquired it. They started selling off the assets, and Virtus with his team put together the ability to acquire those assets, and that's how this company essentially really began, with the understanding that their goal was to package it and sell it off to a pharmaceutical company and be done with it, make a nice return on their investment, and then Virtus would have a connection into it to be able to have access to the technology. Well, Virtus, being the kind of guy he is, before really doing anything, he really wants to understand it in depth. And when he had talked to all the researchers that had been doing work on this technology, he realized that they were raving about the results, but none of them understood the mechanism. They didn't understand why it was doing what it was doing. So before Virtus and his partner Jim decided that they wanted to approach pharmaceutical companies, they wanted to figure out what was going on, why this product was doing what it was doing. And so they brought on this guy named Dr. Gary Samuelson, who was an atomic physicist that specialized in medical applications. And Gary discovered that what these guys had inadvertently started working with had to do with an emerging science that's called redox signaling, something that really has only developed over the last 15, 20 years. And so he recognized that that's in fact what these guys had mistakenly or accidentally discovered. It wasn't like they got together and said, oh, you know, redox signaling is really great, let's come up with a product. The way this product was originally discovered was an orthopedic surgeon was trying to find a way to sterilize his surgical instruments without toxic chemicals that typically were used in the sterilization process. And this particular surgeon was really ahead of his time. He was concerned about his staff and his patients being exposed to the toxic nature of these agents, and he wanted to come up with an alternative. And he developed a process of essentially using electricity with a salt and water solution to create a solution that was antimicrobial, and yet it was non-toxic. And that was really the way it happened. And one of his partners got sick with some health challenge and thought, well, gee, if this material kills the bad stuff and yet it's non-toxic, maybe it would help him. And so he actually had the wild idea of drinking this stuff for the first time. And that really spawned the creation of that whole public company over a 17-year period of doing that and seeing the enormous things that went along. Now, redox signaling really got its greatest push into the scientific world in 1998 when these three guys got the Nobel Prize in Medicine for discovering that a redox molecule acts as a communication molecule at the cellular level in the system. The focus that they were doing had to do with cardiovascular. But before that time, there was no real sense that these redox molecules were anything other than waste products of other important biological activity. They kind of put the whole concept of redox signaling meaning that there's a communication aspect of what these molecules are able to do, and really set the stage for the research. And since then, redox signaling is really the fastest growing area of scientific research worldwide, with international journals, dozens of graduate level textbooks, universities opening up entire departments dedicated to redox biology. And you know, the crazy thing is that there is so much going on this. There are some 14,000 peer-reviewed papers now that have been published on redox signaling and all the incredible things that can happen with it, and yet most people have never heard of it. Most medical doctors have never heard of it. It's still really in the research level around the world, and the main reason that is that the scientific community believes that it is literally impossible to create these important molecules and be able to produce them outside of the body in a way that can benefit us. And yet the pharmaceutical companies, they're the ones that are really driving a lot of the research on redox signaling, okay, to really understand it, because they're looking to manipulate it within the body, but not thinking that there's some way you can create these outside of the body and take the actual molecules themselves. So redox signaling in of itself truly comes under this category of transformational technology. And doctors and researchers recognize that for the next century, the greatest medical advances that happen are going to be as a result of redox signaling science that's out there, okay? So it's at the very forefront of what's to come, and they recognize that this is the place to look for solutions that have been eluding them for all these years, hopefully for a lot of these chronic challenges that are out there that have not been able to be addressed by modern research, okay? So what's really interesting is this is a very recent article. Lancet magazine is one of the most prestigious scientific journals in the medical community. And this is Dr. James Watson. He and his colleague, Dr. Crick, Watson and Crick, were the two Nobel laureates that discovered the structure of DNA and really led the whole development of genetic research out in the last 30, 40 years. He wrote an article in the Lancet magazine where he was saying that diabetes, dementia, cardiovascular, and some cancers are linked to a failure to generate enough what's called reactive oxygen species, which is another way of talking about redox molecules. These redox molecules that are created in the cells, and then for the last 30 years, the world in health and wellness thought that these ROS, or reactive oxygen species, also termed free radicals, were the bad guys, okay? And yet here's a guy saying, wait a minute, okay? If we don't have enough of these things, it's creating these chronic diseases. So this is really very contrarian to a lot of the thought process of people out there talking about antioxidants, okay? So antioxidants are not necessarily are not necessarily the panacea that everybody thought. So oxidants are reactive oxygen species within the cells. And the reason they're important is they act as communication signaling, to alert the cells and to be able to drive and direct the cells to be able to repair or to destroy themselves if they can't repair themselves. But it all gets back to this redox ability to do it. So what are these molecules? Well, first they're produced in the cells. They allow the cells to communicate with each other, and they allow the tissues that are made up of cells to be able to heal themselves. So we're talking about something that's at the very foundation of cells. We are so far in advance and in front of this understanding that we've really got something that is just now being recognized as a solution to evaluate on a research basis. So let's talk a little bit more about our cells. Our cells are amazing. As a molecular biologist, I was just, awed by what happens in a single cell. It's like one cell is like a whole universe in its own, okay? But these cells, as amazing as they are, they're very fragile, and they get damaged by all the various things in our environment, from the radiation in the environment, even when we mechanically exercise, we're damaging cells by the millions. When we cut ourselves and tear our skin, we're damaging millions of cells. The toxins, the pollutants, the things in the environment, all these contribute to a lot of cell damage. But the most significant source of cellular damage goes back to stress. That gets back to future shock. It gets back to the amount of level of stress that now people just consider normal, okay? It's like when people go and they now get their blood and they look at different markers in the blood and there's a normal range. Well, that normal range is not really normal. It's just the normal range if you look at the statistics of the population. But most people are way out of what would really be considered the normal range. The normal range meaning that you're not sick. But when you got, the majority of the population dealing with challenges, that's considered normal now. It's considered normal for people that are over 60 years old to have a medicine cabinet full of different pharmaceuticals that they're taking to alleviate a whole host of different conditions. That's considered normal anymore. So this whole process is really important to understand. Now, our body on a daily basis is constantly regenerating. It's constantly repairing itself to the tune of literally tens of billions of cells every day that need to be repaired or replaced. And if we happen to be sick, or if we're an athlete and we're exercising, then we're going to need even more than that. Now, when we're young, okay, our bodies produce an abundance of these things. Okay, there's a lot of these molecules that are created, and by the time we're age 70, we've lost about 90% of the production of these molecules, and we've lost about 90% of our body's ability to repair itself at the cellular level. Well, what does that mean? Okay, let's say you got a cell that's damaged. It's damaged by all these possibilities, and it doesn't recognize that it's damaged. And because it's not recognized that it's damaged, it doesn't fix itself, it doesn't destroy itself, the immune system doesn't recognize it's there, and then that cell divides. Now you got two damaged cells, because now when it divides, it's a mirror image of itself. And now those two cells, when they divide, you got 4, and then 8, and 16, and 32, and pretty soon you've got millions of damaged cells that accumulate during the course of life. Now, when we think about the proliferation of damaged cells, the worst case scenario is something like cancer. But the truth is that the accumulation of damaged cells is the process of aging itself. It's the process of the cells no longer having the ability to efficiently be able to maintain healthy tissue. In the laboratory, in culture, you can have cells and they can essentially be able to divide and proliferate forever if you provide it with the right nutrients, get rid of the waste products, and give it everything it needs. The same is true in our body. Our bodies have the ability to do amazing things if we can restore those basic situations there. So, but as we get older, we just flat out don't have enough of these redox signaling molecules to be able to handle the demand. So this is true not just for us as human beings, but literally everything that's alive that has more than one cell relies on redox signaling as a way of allowing the life process to work effectively. And so the most important thing that we can do, and from a practitioner and somebody that's interested in health and wellness, the most important thing that you can do is to restore the balance of the redox environment within the body. It's more important than the foods that we eat, it's more important than the exercise that we get, it's more important than the supplements we take, it's more important than whether we're acid or alkaline. It's the single most important thing we can do, and yet 99.9% of the people don't have a clue about it right now, okay? So we're really in the avant-garde to get out there and start educating people around this. So ASEA has a breakthrough, and I kind of mentioned this a bit, really happened after 17 years of its accidental discovery when this guy started drinking this. There's some 31 patents on it right now, but they've been able to do what scientists essentially still believe is literally impossible, and that is to produce these molecules and stabilize them outside of the body so that we can take them when we feel like it, okay? These redox molecules, when they're created inside our cells, are only around for fractions of a second or seconds at the most. They do their job, they create the signaling, and then they're essentially eliminated. So the molecules that we're talking about with the ASEA are the ones that are created in our cells that are produced from the saline environment, the salt and water environment that has to do with the fluids in all of our body. And after these molecules are produced and they do what they're designed to do, the body converts it back into salt and water. So it's a constant flow of salt and water creating these molecules and then going back into salt and water. Okay, they don't stick around very long. So nobody's thought it was possible to create these things. When I first got introduced to this with Virtus 5 years ago, I was really impressed with the science, but I didn't for a moment believe that they were actually able to take these electron donors and acceptors and put them in the same liquid, because the scientific expectation would be is they would just react back together and poof, you know, you would have salt water in the bottle and there's no way to maintain them. But these guys were able to figure out, you know, it was Dr. Samuelson that figured out how to stabilize them, to do something that is truly miraculous when it comes to the scientific arena. And that is to create precisely the same molecules that your body needs and be able to have them available to restore and be able to create the balanced, stabilized redox environment inside our bodies for the first time in history. Now, let me kind of give you some perspective on this, because there are things that you can do outside of ASEA in the world of health and wellness that are also beneficial to that. How many of you are familiar with wheatgrass juice, for instance? Okay? So if you're growing wheatgrass and then you cut it and you squeeze it and you drink it within a minute or so, you're going to get a pretty good source of redox molecules. If you measure the millivoltage of wheatgrass juice when you first squeeze it, it's about minus 200 millivolts because of the redox potential. Now, unfortunately, those molecules are only around for seconds, okay, and then they're gone. And then you still got great benefits in wheatgrass juice, okay? You got all the enzymes, the nutrients and everything, but you no longer have the redox potential of it. But just showing you that in nature, that this isn't something that is, you know, something that doesn't exist. But these molecules are there. So if you're growing your own food and you're picking it out of your garden and you're eating it, that's another reason why you're getting a healthier environment, because it's going to have more of these important redox molecules available for your body to assimilate, okay? But if you take 4 ounces of ASEA, it's probably like drinking 5 gallons of fresh squeezed wheatgrass juice, okay? So we're talking about being able to provide, I'm just kind of pulling that number out. There's no scientific, you know, basis for that conversion factor between wheatgrass and ASEA. But I'm telling you that it's absolutely, that there are trillions upon trillions of these redox molecules literally in every body, every bottle of this. When you take 4 ounces of ASEA, you are providing literally tens of billions of redox molecules to every single cell in your body. And within a very short period of time, you have reestablished the proper redox environment that allows your cells to do what they know what to do. Now here's the key. ASEA doesn't help your cells directly do anything different. All it does is it reestablishes the environment, and then your body knows what to do. Because that's what the miraculous nature of life is. It already knows what to do, okay? After about 2 hours, there's no more of those redox molecules available from the ASEA you drink, and in an ideal world, you don't need to ever drink it again because you've reestablished that environment. But unfortunately, most people carry around an enormous toxic load in their body, and they're constantly being exposed to stressors emotionally, psychologically, or physically in the environment, and so they're creating that out of balance situation very quickly. And that's why you want to drink it again. Drink it again. But the reality is that the longer you use ASEA, the less you're going to need, because you're going to start increasing the body's own natural supply of these molecules at the cellular level. So we're really providing something that's going to be extremely beneficial over time with what people have. So how does ASEA make this stuff? Well, just like our body produces these important molecules from salt and water, we start with salt and water. We use an electrical redox process to break it up into the 4 atoms that are comprised in salt and water. You've got NaCl from salt, H2O from water, and then we restructure those 4 molecules, those 4 atoms, into a group of 16 different redox molecules that are the same ones that our cells produce, in the same ratios that our cells produce. So we literally have something that's never existed in the history of the world, and that is the world's first and only balanced, stabilized redox signaling supplement. Okay? So, just to reiterate, redox molecules are not vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, structured water, exotic juices. These are all amazing things, but I'm here to tell you that if you don't have the right redox environment, you are not going to be able to maximize the benefit you get out of all these other things. Okay? You just won't be able to do it. You're only going to get a fraction of the possible benefits that you can get because your body's not able to extract and utilize the potential benefits that you're able to get from it. So we're really dealing with something totally unique and foundational to health. Okay? So there's really only 2 places in the world right now where you can get these redox molecules in any kind of practical way, because not very many people are producing wheatgrass juice, and even if they are, they're not drinking it instantly at the time they press it, because first off, they don't even realize that they have to do that, and they think that it's probably good for at least minutes or hours, but that's not the case. And when I was saying a minute, realistically, the minute you squeeze it, those molecules are disappearing. Okay, so let me get back to that. So you've got 2 places now where you can get a concentration of these molecules. You can get it in a bottle of ASEA, which is a liquid that we drink, and you can get it in a tube of Renew 28, which is a topical gel concentrate of these molecules to be able to apply it topically. Okay, we call it Renew 28. Now, from a strategic point of view as a business, we recognized that the value of this topical gel was really useful at going after kind of the vanity market in the skin care industry and the anti-aging type of appearance. And so we had a clinical test run with a very prestigious company, dermatological testing company in Germany, in Munich, Germany, called Dermatest. And so they tested the before and afters of Renew 28, and they found that there was a 23% increase in the skin smoothness, the facial texture, 22%, 20% increase in elasticity, 23% improvement in wrinkles, all these amazing things, and yet the ingredients that exist in Renew 28, which is essentially salt and water, should have nothing to do with any of these things happening. There are no anti-aging skin care products out there that have anything like that in it. There's no basis to it other than the fact that these redox molecules activate the cells to actually restore and regenerate and renew themselves. So this is true cellular renewal. We're not putting a patina or a facade of anti-aging, the look of anti-aging, we're actually impacting cells at the very level of health. And as those cells start rising to the surface, we're bringing healthy cells to the skin. You know, increase in elasticity, the only way that that's going to happen is by increasing collagen and elastin within the tissues of the skin, and those molecules need to be produced in skin cells. And so the fact that we're increasing that is saying a lot about the fact that we're increasing the quality of the cells themselves, okay? And you see a lot of amazing things in terms of before and afters, and you probably have already seen, you know, several pictures from people that have been sharing with you in terms of the possibilities of what this Renew 28 actually does to bring about new and healthy, regenerated, rejuvenated skin cells to the surface, okay? You know, things that are blemishes, scars, things of that nature will disappear when normal cells start being generated. You know, in terms of the lines, the wrinkles and things of that nature. This is an individual with age spots on the top of their head, and you can see the reduction in the age spots. This is all 28 days from using the product. You can see this guy, he's got all kinds of furs and everything, and 28 days later, you know, but just a little right there. So, yeah, I can't believe I used to look like that. You know? Yeah. So let me kind of put this in perspective a little bit, because you know, you listen to Naomi and you listen to some people that have had really extraordinary, rapid results from drinking ASEA or using Renew. But that's not the way it is all the time. Statistically now, we've got 5 years of results essentially to be looking at. And it comes down to about 10 to 15% of the people will consciously experience the product, whether they feel that their sleep is better, whether their dreams are more vivid, whether they have some challenge that they're able to see you know, some change in it the first week. About half of the people in a month. You know, after 3 months, essentially more than 90% of the people are having a conscious experience of the product. That doesn't mean that everybody isn't having benefits of the product. In fact, the research that's been out there has been showing that everybody has an amazing benefit from the product immediately. So what do these products do? Well, it slows down the aging process, okay? It assists our body in healing itself, so we got the anti-aging benefit of it. We got the ability of dealing with health challenges. It has a profound impact for athletes and their ability to recover and train more effectively and compete more vigorously. And it has the ability for people to just look a lot better than they did before they started using the product. And it has the ability of bringing about the possibilities of addressing these various different chronic megatrends that have been plaguing people around the world over the last 20, 30, 40 years of what's going on out there. Now, as I mentioned, this is something that's happening from the moment you start drinking ASEA, whether you're consciously experiencing it. This is taking a look at someone's blood before they took ASEA. This is looking at the red blood cells. You can see that they're stacked together here. They're not coagulated, but they're stacked together. What causes them to be stacked together is an electrical phenomena. They call that zeta potential. It has to do with the electrical aspect of the membrane. Remember, we were talking about the electrical aspect of the membrane. Well, here you can see what it does to your blood. This typically happens if somebody's sitting in front of a computer, they're exposed to electromagnetic frequencies, they're dealing with toxins in the environment. That causes this sort of thing to happen to your blood. The cells start to stack together that way, and it makes it less effective to actually carry oxygen throughout your body. It also makes it very difficult for the cells to make it through the tiniest of the capillaries, the small vessels in the extremities in your body, because these capillaries are hardly even one red blood cell wide. The cells actually have to kind of squeeze their way through, and when they're clumped together like that, it makes it difficult for it to get through the body. So you're not even allowing your blood to do its job to get the nutrients and the oxygen through your body. Look what happens just 20 minutes after someone consumed 4 ounces of ASEA. And now you can see that those cells are all free. They're not stacked together. We've changed that electrical phenomena that called them to stick together, okay? And this is just what's happening in your blood, but this is happening across the board. Now, we didn't take 100 people to get a before and after like that, but this is common. You can see this over and over and over again, and this is really important. Whether you feel it or not, this is what's happening, okay? So, I want to share an important thing here to kind of also explain where we are in terms of this technology. Well, first off, we've got a lot of athletes that are starting to experience some really phenomenal benefits as a result of using this. This here is a guy named James Lawrence out of Calgary. He's now won 2 Guinness Book of World Records for running the most Ironman triathlons. In 2013, he ran 30 Ironman triathlons in a year. 30. I mean, you know, that would have been considered crazy to do. This is Gerard Robert Lewis, who's out of Gerard Louis Robert, who's out of Montreal. He just in the last month broke 2 world records over in Manchester, England, for running indoor track and indoor cycling, and he's the world champion. He just, you know, he's got just a whole amount of medals, and he's 65 years old, and he just recovered from a major accident of which the doctors told him that they didn't think he'd be able to compete again after that. And so he attributes it to ASEA's ability for him to be able to recover from the damage of the cycling accident, and also be able to give him the ability to train significantly enough for him to be a world champion. But athletes have been using the product, and so ASEA, being a health product and not a drug, not a pharmaceutical product, started saying that, you know what, we can take a look at some of the athletic research here to try and educate people on what's possible with this technology, because as a supplement company, we can't be making claims about what this product is able to do for health challenges. So even if ASEA were to do a study for some chronic condition, and even if they were to find amazing results about it, they wouldn't be able to use any of that in being able to educate the market or being able to develop the market as a result of that. So what they were hoping is that they could use the athletic aspect of it to find certain aspects of it, and that people would be able to connect the dots. In fact, if it benefits people in terms of what they're able to do, then maybe people understand what it can do for them. They went to this guy, Dr. Neiman, because he's highly published and highly respected in the world of athletic research and nutritional research. And he's got a research laboratory at one of the most sophisticated and well-equipped research facilities in North America. It's a place called the North Carolina Research Campus, where 7 universities and several companies all use that same facility. And here's what's really interesting. Dr. Neiman found that even the first time that an athlete drank ASEA, that there was a change in 43 different metabolites. Actually, 43 out of 98 known metabolites shifted within 30 minutes from the time they drank ASEA. And they actually changed and affected these metabolites even over a 24-hour period. And these metabolites had to do with the ability for cells to produce energy, for them to be able to produce energy. And so he postulated that the reason the athletes were seeing such great benefits from drinking ASEA had the ability for the body to be able to access fatty acids from the body to be able to use to generate energy. Okay? Now typically, somebody has to work out very intensely, 45 minutes or more, so that the body will use sugar, carbohydrates for energy, and when the body runs out of that, that's why you hear people carb loading when they're going to race, okay? They'll eat a lot of pasta, so they got a lot of carbs that their body can access for energy. And then after they're gone, then the body will start using fat to be able to use for energy. Now why is that? Well, the body loves fat, because fat is very efficient for storing energy, and so it doesn't want to give it up. It wants to keep it in case there's a famine in the future or something. Now children are able to access fat fatty acids as an energy source, but as we get to be adults, we're predominantly relying on carbohydrate. So he did the study, and he saw the results, and he saw that these fatty acids were made available, and so he wanted to do a follow-up research where he used a controlled study with mice to be able to see whether or not they actually used up less carbohydrate. First off, he found that they ran 29% longer with the ASEA compared to the controls, but more importantly, that they used up 33% less of the carbohydrate in the muscles called glycogen, which normally they would have used up, and so it proved that they were getting energy from another source, from using the fatty acids, not using the carbohydrate. And it allowed them to have these results. And that was dramatic information for Dr. Neiman, and dramatic information for the sports and athletic world. Okay, and as Dr. Neiman says, mice just don't run 29% longer for no reason. Okay? Now here's the dilemma that Dr. Neiman had. Once he actually saw these results, because frankly, he thought ASEA was just snake oil. He just thought it was people that took salt water, put it in a bottle, made up a story around it. People were having placebo effects, and he expected just to be a whistleblower and kind of, tell the world that this is just another one of these products that really doesn't do anything. That was his expectation going into his research. Now he had a dilemma. He's finding results that he's never seen anywhere with anything, and he wants to be able to publish it, okay? But when it comes to publishing in science, he can't just say, well, look at these results, and it's as a result of this stuff that's called ASEA, which if you look at the ingredients, it says it's made from salt and water. And they say that they got redox signaling molecules stabilized in it. Well, that doesn't work in the scientific community. He had to be able to prove that these molecules actually exist. Now, for 4 years, before Dr. Neiman got to this point in the research, we've been plagued from a business point of view with people accusing us that we were just selling salt water. Okay, if you go today on the internet, and if you want to Google ASEA, you'll have people that will swear that this is just salt water, that you're just, you can take, less than $1 worth of salt and water, mix it together and make up your own ASEA, and they are like completely wrong. But the challenge is, we were proving that these molecules existed in there through second-hand kind of research, never direct measuring of those molecules, because these redox molecules, as I mentioned before, in life, they're usually only around for seconds. The fact that we've been able to stabilize them truly is a major, major scientific breakthrough. But as soon as you do anything to it, as soon as you try and measure it, typically in most situations, those molecules immediately go back into salt water, and so it's very elusive to be able to physically detect it. But the thing is that over at this North Carolina Research Institution, they had a piece of equipment there, a $500 million piece of equipment, the most sophisticated piece of equipment in the world, or one of the few, and it's a magnetic resonance, nuclear magnetic resonance device that's able to actually measure the constituents in it without directly interacting with it to change it, to cause them to go back to salt water. And he was able to prove with this technology that ASEA is not salt water. Here's salt water, here's ASEA, here's one of the molecules that's produced, sodium hypochlorite. So ASEA is not sodium hypochlorite, it's not salt water, okay? So, I mean, there's people that say, and sodium hypochlorite is like bleach, so people say, oh yeah, we can just take salt water, I put a little bleach in it or whatnot, and it's the same thing. That's not the case. So he's able to prove and show that, and these are redox molecules that should only last for fractions of a second. The fact that they're stable in ASEA is a marvel scientifically. So for the first time, we've got definitive, incontrovertible proof scientifically that we've got what we say we have, and that is stabilized redox signaling molecules in this bottle, and that allowed Dr. Neiman to publish those results. Okay? Now, the scientific world doesn't just roll over and say, okay, you know, hallelujah, you've done this. That just starts a long process of scientific research that can then validate, you know, what we've got going on. And sooner or later, the world's going to say, wow, where do I get this stuff? So because for the first time in history, we don't have to follow this path of degradation as we get older, where our bodies are breaking down faster and faster and faster with the accumulation of damaged cells. We can actually turn back the clock biologically and allows our cells actually to be healthier than they were before. The good news is you don't have to worry about going all the way back through puberty all over again, okay? But it allows your body to heal itself in a way that was only possible with, for people that are a lot younger. So if we really truly have a transformational breakthrough, then if you've got an entrepreneurial aspect to what's going on in your life, you'll recognize that that means that this is something that portends to be an extremely exciting business potential. Because any kind of major breakthrough, just like Masaru Ibuka in Japan, he took advantage of leveraging a transformational breakthrough and created a very, very significant company out there. We're talking about being able to harness a transformational breakthrough. For the last 30 years, a lot of people have been making money off of the nutritional world, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. You got, you know, crazy things where people put cherry juice in soda pop and, you know, market it as a health drink, you know, thinking that that's going to be a good thing. But there's a lot of products out there that people are using in the public now is craving it. The normal population, the masses, respond to things like, oh yeah, it contains antioxidants, or it's got these different nutrients and supplements in it. That's an important thing for them now. We've come a long way, right? But think of the possibilities that being at the very forefront, the very pioneer of the kind of breakthrough products and technologies that are going to be spawned over the next 30 years as a result of harnessing redox signaling. And from a business point of view, that puts us in an extraordinary, powerful position. So ASEA, as a company and as a product, provides us with amazing possibilities. Now, as a company, they're an extraordinary company. You've got the likes of Vertus Norton, who's the, you know, a world, you know, business strategy guru out there, and he's been able to really run this company effectively, completely debt-free within the first year. We now have really closer to about 200,000 customers worldwide, operating now in 25 countries, over 200 million in sales that we've accumulated over our first 4 years. And in the process of doing that, we've already created an opportunity that's created several millionaires in the process. Okay? And the reason that's happened has to do with the ability of leveraging power through the concept of network marketing. Network marketing is something that allows people to leverage time, which is really important. A lot of people are familiar with leveraging money. You know that you can take money, you can invest it, you can take that money and leverage it, increase the money. But most people out there don't have the funds to do that sort of thing. The leveraging time is even more important to do this. Well, how do you leverage time? Okay? Well, let's say you've got 5 hours a week you can put into a little sideline of, you know, exposing this product, maybe getting a few people, you know, purchasing the product, and you're able to make a little bit of money with 5 hours a week. But with a network marketing concept, you can also have a few other people that are doing the same thing, and if they're putting 5 hours a week, let's say you've got 5 people putting 5 hours a week, now you've got your 5 hours plus their 25 hours between them, now you've got 30 hours a week going into your business. And you can see how that can parlay to the point where you literally have tens of, or hundreds or thousands of hours a week going into your business, which is impossible to do other than the possibility of using something like network marketing to leverage time. So it's a very, very powerful concept. So why did Vertus and Jim decide to build this incredible product technology and take it out through network marketing? Well, one is it allows very rapid movement throughout a whole global industry, a global market. Network marketing for individuals provides a very low-risk way of getting involved in a business, and especially people are offered the ability to have a product that's got unconditional money-back guarantees. It allows unlimited earning potential for the people there, and it allows people to create a business asset that they can use and provide as a legacy for their people. Vertus and Jim looked at network marketing because the world out there is not educated about redox signaling. And if we went out there and just put it on the internet, it'd just be another thing that people don't believe, right? But when people use the products and have the personal experience, and they're sharing the information with individuals that they personally know, that's the power of word of mouth, and that's the power of network marketing, and it's the fastest way to really get a product and goods and service out to the marketplace. Network marketing today is turning out to be a very, very powerful business model. That's why you take somebody like Warren Buffett, one of the world's wealthiest individuals. Here's a guy now that just bought his third or fourth network marketing company. He actually owns 4 network marketing companies. But why would he do that if he didn't realize that it's a very, very efficient model to get goods and services out to the marketplace? Vertus, being a strategist, once they figured out that they had this amazing technology, the next step was what's the best distribution channel to put it out there? And he did an intensive evaluation of the various publicly traded companies out there that are involved in network marketing, because if they're publicly traded, you had access to their financials, and he realized how incredibly effective network marketing is as a distribution channel for getting goods and services out to the marketplace if it's done properly and effectively, and most importantly, if it's done professionally. And that's why ASEA chose to do that. So it provides people a road to go on. We're not just trading their hours for dollars, but allows them to leverage income and develop a passive residual income, which is a powerful way for people to generate wealth and pass it on to their families. So at the end of the day, what we're talking about is, for a ridiculously low investment of like 43 bucks, you can be in a business for yourself where you're provided all kinds of materials to get started with, and then just add an initial product order to get started. You can get 1 case, it's $125 plus tax and shipping for a case of 4 bottles of ASEA, 32 ounces in each bottle, okay? 2 cases, $250, and 4 and 8 cases, which you can avail yourself only at the time you get engaged in the company. You can get the value on that and get a very good financial discount on it, and then basically get the business started. You can enroll in a duplication system that we put together that allows people to very effectively share this information. We don't expect people to learn this information. We don't want you to learn this information. We don't even want you to attempt to explain what I'm explaining to you, okay? Do not do this, all right? Okay? However, what you can do is you can send somebody a copy of the video or a copy of a CD, or put them on a conference call and allow a tool, a third-party tool, to do the explanation. Our role as ASEA associates in getting this word out there is to be the deliverer of the message, not delivering the message itself. Connecting people to the source of where they get the message. And a system like this creates a duplication process, as well as providing a very, very powerful means for people to document their business expenses that allow them to be able to write off enormous value in being able to save on their personal taxes. And then it's just a matter of setting daily objectives and what you're going to do with the business. If you want to do this on a part-time basis, what you really need to be thinking about doing is talking to 2 people a day, adding 2 people a day to your list of people that you're going to be communicating with about ASEA. If you want to get serious and develop into a full-time business, you're really looking at about 5 exposures a day. And to really build a massive business, you're really looking at 10 exposures a day. But you know what? These numbers are really not big numbers. But it's important to have an idea of what really is going to do the process to give you a successful business that you can build as an ASEA business. So at the end of all that, we're really talking about $5 a day to have a turnkey business where the manufacturing's already been capitalized, it's been developed and maintained, shipping and receiving, billing, customer service, legal, IT, international product development. All these things are developed. We were talking last night at dinner about the difficulties in taking a product and being able to commercialize it just for one market. What about markets all over the world, the amount of resources that are needed in doing that, and yet we can leverage all that's been done from the company for really the price of just getting a case of product a month that we use to help our own families and our own health and well-being. And then we can get that returned back to us by being able to document the various business expenses in the process, including the $5 a day that we're spending to be able to get a write-off, legitimate business write-offs, tax write-offs of what we're doing in business, okay? So I want to just kind of finish this presentation kind of giving you a sense of the timing here, okay? Because this is truly the first time in the network marketing world where a true transformational technology is actually being brought to the market through the network marketing distribution channel. Literally every other network marketing company that's out there. And there's really good companies out there. There's companies that have really good products and services, but what they're typically doing is they're creating a better mousetrap on a market that already exists to try and carve off a small piece of market share for something that's already there. We're creating an entirely new market with a transformational technology. And because of that, that has ramifications I want to explain here. The network marketing companies go through different phases of their development. Foundation, concentration, and if they're lucky, they get to a certain critical mass where they move into massive, double-digit monthly growth. They go into momentum for a couple, 3 years, and then they go into a process of stability. And so the largest billion-dollar-plus companies out there in network marketing are generally somewhere in this stage right now, okay? So the key is where this critical mass is. And when you're looking strategically to get involved in a company, ideally the best time to get involved is somewhere plus or minus a year of that critical mass point, okay? And then, then you've got the chance of really being able to experience and benefit from this momentum phase that really has massive opportunity to build your business that you don't get if you get involved in the company and the stability side of it, okay? So the question that people would want to ask is, where's ASEA, okay? Well, ASEA right now is just kind of moving into that window. So this is the right place at the right time to be getting involved in this company. We just now, within the last year, we've proven that we've got stabilized redox signaling. We're starting to get a critical mass of people's product experiences. Now when you hear somebody, when you talk to somebody if they've heard of ASEA, it's usually in context of, oh well yeah, I've got a friend or I know somebody that's used that product and has had a really good product experience. It's really helped them. So the word's starting to get out there, but we're at the very, very, very beginning of that. So because we're a transformational technology, though, I think we're going to see something that's never happened before in network marketing, and that is that the demand for this product is going to create a huge window for this momentum, and the possibilities for this momentum phase to continue for years. So being right here and getting involved and getting this and kind of riding this wave of what's going on there really has massive possibilities for you. And I want you to understand that this doesn't represent just a minor possibility to develop a nice little sideline. Yeah, that's fine if that's what you want to do. But if you sense the ability of creating a multi-million-dollar business for your family to have, this is the right place at the right time with the right product in the right marketplace to get out there and make that happen. And the reason I also believe that we're so close to that critical mass and momentum phase directly is related to this Renew 28. Because any product that you take out to the market, any technology goes through a bell curve shaped adoption gap. A bell shaped curve of being adopted into the marketplace. It starts off with the innovators, people that are like really outside of the box, that recognize something. Kind of like some of the people in this room that saw this product, they recognize it, and maybe they're innovators or the early adopters, they kind of get around to doing it. But until it gets across this adoption gap between the early adopters and the leading majority of people that are starting to use the product, it'll never be able to get out there to the major public. And because we had a product that Number one is a new category. Nobody knows what redox signaling is. It doesn't taste fantastic. Tastes a little bit like swimming pool water. It's got salt and water as the ingredients, okay? It just hasn't been out there where people are saying, wow, amazing, I want some of that salt and water that you got, okay? We know that it's a lot more than salt and water. We just start off with salt and water, right? But with Renew 28, it's a completely different animal. You don't need to explain that because people use this product, they see the results, they see the before and after pictures, it's got a price point on it that people want to buy this stuff with little resistance. And once they start using this and they realize what's happening on the outside, they want to consume the ASEA product and experience on the inside. And we recognize that this is going to be the catalyst that's going to rapidly move us into that momentum phase, into building the business. So that leaves us essentially with the decision, okay? We can take this information and literally do nothing with it. Just say, well, that was interesting, go about our daily activity as if nothing happened, okay? We could choose to become a customer of the product and try the product, use the product, benefit by it. Or we could say, you know what, I want to take advantage of this business and get involved with this as an associate and help get this information out there so that other people can benefit from this product. As a customer, you can buy it at retail. It's $155 for a case of 4 bottles, plus whatever the tax and shipping is based on where you are. You can also take advantage of what we call being a preferred customer and get it at $125 a case, the same price our associates are able to get it for getting it on a monthly order that you could turn on and off at will without any repercussions, no problem if you want to get it, not get it later on. There's an unconditional 30-day money-back guarantee on the product, and you can enjoy the product as a consumer of the product. Or you can become an associate. You can, as I said, register for $43, take advantage of one of these 4 enrollment opportunities, and then it's just a matter of sharing this information with other people. So, as a great basketball player in the States, Michael Jordan says, he goes, look, I can accept failure. Everybody fails at something, but what I have the greatest difficulty with is accepting people not even trying to do anything to make a difference in their health, make a difference in their economic livelihood, make a difference in life. Here, and more close to home, the great Wayne Gretzky likes to say that you miss 100% of the shots you never take, okay? So I'm encouraging people to take a shot, take a chance at seeing what this can do for your family's health, for your well-being, and seeing what you can do from the business aspect of it. Think about who you know that really could benefit from either the business or this product out there, because there's nothing better than making a living by making a difference in people's lives. Okay? So with that, get back together with the people that shared with you this incredible product and technology and business, get your questions answered, and let's help get this product out there to the millions of people around the world whose lives will be changed and benefited by having access to this.
Yeah, excellent.